Hello everyone, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we are talking about potential tropical cyclone 6 that has recently developed in the Eastern Caribbean. Before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe. Make sure that subscribe button is turned gray and those notifications are on as well, and we're just going to get started. So here is potential tropical cyclone 6, and it is in the Eastern Caribbean, pretty much in between the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico right now. Now, the National Hurricane Center, when they issue these potential tropical cyclones, it's not considered a tropical storm yet, but they pretty much treat it like one. They give it a forecast cone, and pretty much the same things that you would see with a normal tropical storm. So we're going to take a look at it today. Sustained winds right now are still 35 miles an hour, which is actually kind of funny because looking at the aircraft reconnaissance data that was coming in, there's actually an observation right here. Many actually that picked up winds of over 35 knots, and if you're familiar with the guide or the criteria, tropical storm is 34 knots, and they actually even had an observation higher than that. Now the reason that could be is because the pressure is actually still remaining pretty high, kind of like a similar problem we had with Elsa at one point. So it's hovering around 1014 millibars here, and of course if we refresh it, really not much change. However, there's actually been a drop right here of pressure down to about 1009, 1007, even down to 1000, near 1005. So there has been a recent drop in pressure as the new data is coming in. You can see as we're flying in. So we'll take a look at that as well. But looking here at the 11 a.m. update, I bet you if they had that data right there, the drop in pressure, if they had that before the 11 o'clock update, they might have named it a tropical storm. I don't know. Personally, I think that might have been the reason they didn't name it yet. But I think Fred will be the next name. So moving west-northwest at about 18 miles an hour, and the forecast cone calls for a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm, all right, before it hits as a predicted landfall Dominican Republic. So here we are right here, 40-mile-an-hour tropical. Actually, let me move so it's better visible. 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm, then 45 actually, with wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. It makes landfall in the Dominican Republic, could actually drop back to a tropical depression, but then there's where the fun comes in. Tropical storm comes back, 40, 45, and there is 60 mile an hour tropical storm as it enters the Gulf. And the Gulf, there's very warm waters there right now, but now major cities in Florida such as Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, you guys are all in the cone now, so you need to start taking precautions. Even Jacksonville, pretty much right on that cone. Remember, impacts can also be outside the cone. Also, Havana, Cuba, another major city town in Cuba, so be sure to be on the lookout there as well. Tropical storm warnings are out. All right, we have tropical storm watches still for the northern part of the islands, west of St. John's here. All right, it's for the northern part of the islands, so north of Guadalupe. So they just dropped the tropical storm watches for the Lesser Antilles. But for Puerto Rico and Eastern Dominican Republic, there are tropical storm warnings and still watches. And I think the reason for that is because it's forecast to drop back to a depression when it passes through like the Northern Dominican Republic, Northern Haiti, and parts of the Bahamas. So with that said, they might keep it watches because it might be on the border between a depression and a storm at that point. All right, so there's the forecast cone. This was actually from this morning. Actually, no, it does say 11 a.m. So this really hasn't changed much from 8 a.m. either. Tropical storm force wind probabilities. I would probably extend that to include maybe even most of Central Florida because they're now in the cone. But if we look at the earliest reasonable times, these are the times that you should be prepared by. All right, so this is the earliest reasonable arrival time of those winds. Puerto Rico, probably later this afternoon into this evening. Eastern Dominican Republic, probably overnight Wednesday, but Wednesday morning for Central and Western Dominican Republic. I would say Haiti, pretty much midday, maybe around noontime, early afternoon is your arrival. If we're talking about a place like Havana, Cuba, probably midday Friday. And then maybe for a place like Tampa, for right now, it would be Saturday morning. That's the earliest reasonable arrival time. The most likely times are pushed a little bit later, but the earliest reasonable is when you should be prepared by. So here are the key messages, all right? We have a few key messages. Forecast to be a tropical storm today or tonight as it moves to the northeastern Caribbean. It just moved into a little layer of warmer sea surface temperatures, so we'll watch out for that. Heavy rainfall, flash flooding, urban flooding, pretty much all types of flooding are in the picture here. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico for short term, then we'll see where it goes after that long term. Wind and rain impacts for Hispaniola, Bahamas, and Cuba later this week, and possibly Florida after that into the weekend. So interest in Florida, of course, should monitor the progress of this system. And here are the same key messages in Spanish, so if you want to pause that and if you want to read that as well, you can do that. So here we have the aircraft reconnaissance. We're going to revisit this again. And pretty much where you see this white here, where we see the weakest flight level winds, this is where the probably pretty much where the center is, because that's where they're finding the weakest, quote-unquote, weakest winds. They're doing more passes here, and they might have actually finished. But there was a recent drop in pressure, like a big drop. Like before, we were only getting 1,013, 1,014. Now they picked up 1,006 millibars. So that's pretty interesting. But at the same time that that's happened, we haven't seen much happen to the winds. But as you saw earlier in the video, of course, it's gone now because it's been a little while. But there were quite a few observations of winds above 35 knots. So that would warrant a tropical storm. So as you can see from the reconnaissance, they did just finish the mission, which is probably why the data stopped coming in. So now they're leaving. I don't know why the plane's upside. I promise you the plane is not upside down. But the flight is leaving now, going east to west here. So they just finished picking up the data. And the strongest winds were pretty much picked up on the northeast side of the storm. Here, let me go to the full picture. You can see pick up between 34 and 40 knots. But keep in mind, that's also at flight level. But they did find very similar winds near the surface. Now, in my personal opinion, I think that at this point, it's probably pretty much on the brink of tropical storm material. But here you can see a 35-mile-an-hour winds, 1,011 millibars of pressure. We'll see if that changes. And let's get a look at it on the satellite. So here you can see it on the satellite. And you can see there's definitely a lot of rotation. All right, and there's a big band coming in from the east. So Lesser Antilles, you might actually get one more. Also Guadalupe, you guys might get maybe one more push. We'll see if it just ends up being cloud cover, but there's a decent area of convection associated with that band, so you could get one more hit before all's said and done here. But the main part of it is right here. There's definitely a center. It's just a very broad center. Another reason I think it could be a tropical storm for the moment right now, because there's definitely some outflow boundaries, right? So you can see one band, two bands. Even some cloud streamers. This is some outflow as well. And this can sometimes protect it from wind shear if it's a big enough system. The storm isn't like massive. But wind shear is not too bad, and dry air is trying to work its way in there. We're going to get into that a little later. As for sea surface temperatures, so where you see this little hook right here, this is near where the storm center is. And as for sea temperature, if we look, pretty much showing about 84 degrees or so. So 84 right now. It just moved into that 84-degree water layer. It was sitting at 83 before, so not much change. But as its forecast path, it's going to go, as of right now, through Dominican Republic, then possibly weaken and get back out, possibly avoiding land. And if it does, that could at least help it maintain or even start to strengthen a little bit. It may not strengthen too much because we're in between land masses here, and the water may be a bit shallow. All right, so that might be something to watch. But notice how the water starts to warm up. 86, 87 near the Bahamas. Like, that is very, very warm water here. 87, maybe even 88 somewhere as it crosses the Gulf Stream. But still, look at this, 85 in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. All right, so if we were to draw a line for the forecast path, it probably would be somewhere like this. So through Dominican Republic, then through the between the Bahamas and Cuba this way, and then coming back over the eastern Gulf somewhere. So definitely something to watch here. South of Havana, we still got that 89-degree reading, which is still blowing my mind, still even. But looking at the dry air right now, you can see there's a little bit to its south, but the dry air, it's put its distance between the dry air. So I don't think any of the convection itself is being affected by the dry air right now. I think it's trying. This dry air could also be retreating. I think it is retreating, actually. As you can see, all the dry air is retreated. Remember in the last hurricane discussion video, there was still a little bit left, but now it's pretty much gone. I'm surprised Hurricane Center hasn't also picked up on this other area. Convection that I was watching for a while, so we'll see if they do pick up on that. But for right now, we're talking about potential Tropical Cyclone 6 here. probably soon to be Tropical Storm Fred. Now, one saving grace for it, we've seen a pretty good drop in shear. It's down to like around 15, 10 knots, maybe even lower than that. And shear, as you can see, has also been decreasing in the past 24 hours, but just outside of it, there has been a little increase in shear. So we'll see if it gets through that. Now, like I said, personally, in my opinion, wherever it does go, all right, even in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, let me change my color because with the darker colors, black doesn't look so good. There we go. So you can see it, the marker now. But look at the central and eastern Gulf. This is why I think that's another reason why I think it may not develop. But when it goes between the Bahamas and Cuba, like sort of in this area, I don't think it might even develop there, or at least hold its strength, because look at the Gulf. Pretty much no wind shear at all, or very low actually. Or let's say it goes up the East Coast, right? Even there, the wind shear is very low at the moment. So that's another reason why I think, A, being the shallow water here, and also the increase in shear. So it might develop more once it hits the Gulf of Mexico, if it does, or if it goes off the East Coast. That's probably the two options at this point. It could still go out to sea, but it looks like it's going to stay south at this point. It probably will. And also the acceleration and speed tells me that the high pressure is taking control to the north, and that the storm has started picking up some speed. It's steering it in the westerly direction. So as of 8 a.m., this is where the low was, around 63 degrees west, 16 degrees north. By now, the low, I think, is about right here, actually. Of course, because it's been 3 hours since the last update. Looking at some of the model tracks, again, models have been in pretty good agreement with this, and I'm very impressed. Of course, not all the models, but most of them. Through the next 72 hours, pretty much all of them take it pretty much over water after it hits Dominican Republic. Some do have it grazing Cuba as well, but most of them do have it just offshore. And then going between Cuba and Florida, so the Florida Straits, and then offshore of Tampa, and then coming in and making potentially another right turn. So we'll see if this is another. This could pretty much be another Elsa. The only difference with Elsa is it went like south, all right, and then came up and bow echoed to the east. So we'll see. This could be pretty similar. Of course, no two storms are alike, but two storms can be similar. If we look at the GEFS model tracks, there's a lot more of these. So, but even these model tracks through the next 72 hours, pretty much a good agreement on where this is going to end up being. Now, after that, it gets a little hectic. Some have it going this way, some have it going this way, and a couple have it going that way towards North Carolina. But the sum, the black, which means like the mean of all these sets of model tracks, pretty much looks the same as the previous map I just showed you right here. Right, pretty much looks similar to that. Now, if we look at the GEPS model tracks, not very many of them out right now, but they do have a pretty good agreement of where it's going to go for the next 72 hours, pretty much ending up near the Bahamas. And then after that, they actually have a good agreement that's going to go somewhere near the East Coast, near the I-95. So we'll be watching that part closely as well. I just want to focus on the more short term for right now, because we're not even sure if it's going to make a U.S. landfall yet. We're not 100% sure. Intensity forecast. Notice one thing here. Through the next 60 hours, the strength doesn't change too much, but it's after 72. Right, and as you can see by all the models here, after 72, that's when it starts getting maybe near the Gulf of Mexico or maybe off the east shore of Florida. So after that, that's when the strength really starts to increase, as you can see there. So that could be one reason why the model intensity forecast looks like that. And of course, the chance of becoming a Category 1 hurricane after that. All right, so we'll see. The high resolution, or excuse me, the HWRF model, sorry. Now, I like to look at this because you can see where the mid-level center and the low-level center are on the humidity scale. And you can see the banding here, too. There's some little, I wouldn't call them supercells, but little splotches of heavier precipitation and banding features that we see right now. So here's the surface center, right? This is at about 11 a.m. 1,009 millibars of pressure. They're pretty much right. Now that I saw that recent drop in the reconnaissance, we saw that drop in pressure right here, down to about 1,006, between 1,005 and 1,007 somewhere. So actually earlier they had 1,004 at 8 o'clock this morning, but 1,009 seems more reasonable. So here's the surface center, but look at the mid-level center sitting right down there. So that's not a very vertically stacked system. That's the same issue we had with Elsa. Now, it could get together a little bit more. I definitely see a little bit more concentration of the darker colors here. But notice mid-level center is still down here somewhere. You can see where the rotation of the little stick, I'm just going to call them sticks. The little sticks down here that you can see. Of course, the rotation of them, the counterclockwise rotation of them, of the pointers, that obviously is the mid-level center. As you can see, 700 to 400 HPA wins. All right, those are your mid-level wins. So, and then of course, like 300 and 200 HPA would be like those high-level wins. But as we track this to the north and west, it goes between the. So here's Cuba on the bottom of your screen down here. Here's the Bahamas here. So it's starting to get rain between them. But look what starts to happen: 1,000 millibars of pressure, a lot of deep convection on that eastern side, and the mid-level center is pretty much right under it. So the surface center and mid-level center are vertically stacked, and when that happens, we start to see a strengthening system. And the HWRF actually has a very well strengthening system, 983 millibars. It's pretty much is a Category 1 hurricane at this point, down to 976, 973 at landfall, and they do have a landfall pretty much right on Miami. Miamians, don't freak out yet, but that is the latest call with the HWRF, is a Miami landfall as a hurricane. If we look at the wind graph here, so pretty much maintaining tropical storm status, right? And then things start going up once it gets near the Bahamas, and pretty much 80 knots. That's probably about an upper Category 1 hurricane. 100 knots is Category 3, so we're not quite there, but 84 knots or so. Then it makes landfall near Miami, and then comes back out over the water again, still maintaining tropical storm status of about 45 mile-an-hour winds, as you can see on the top right of your screen. So HWRF, latest run, pretty interesting. Let's look at the GFS. So GFS, there it is, pretty much same thing as the National Hurricane Center is saying, if you can follow it. Sitting right here, near the Dominican Republic on the eastern part. Then goes between the Bahamas and Cuba, then comes back out over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, all right, and then making landfall, according to this for right now, near the Florida Panhandle. This is pretty much a perfect blend of the National Hurricane Center's track and AccuWeather's track. Pretty much saying this exact same thing. So a lot of weather companies and models are agreeing pretty well on this. And that's obviously a good sign. That's what we want to see here when you're forecasting a tropical system. Canadian model. What do you guys think? Well, system continues to track to the north and west near the Bahamas, a little closer to the Bahamas, little bit farther to the north, but still in between the Bahamas and Cuba, a little bit larger of a system. Then pretty much going through Miami, going back over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and gaining some pretty good strength, and then making landfall near the Big Bend of Florida, right near Apalachicola. And then continuing to move to the north and east, and maybe even another area of energy that spawns off from that low. But the low actually pretty much just sits there and just does nothing. I mean, look, this is when it starts to get near its landfall point. This is later in the day, Monday the 16th. Then look at this. This is the 20th, or late in day the 19th into the 20th. It's still sitting there. So that is not good news. So let's go back to right at this point. Let's actually go to the total precip, so you can see the amount of precip that could result because of this. All right, so looking out 10 days, you can see the red is 6 inches and the yellowish colors is over 10. So that is not a good sign here if it stalls out like that. All depending on the steering currents. Right now, not many models are forecasting a stop, but the Canadian is, or a slower movement. So here is the European model. Each click, each loop like this is 24 hours, by the way. That's how the European works on here. So coming out, this is 8 p.m. on Saturday, 8 p.m. Sunday, pretty much right near Apalachicola, 8 p.m. Monday, 8 p.m. Tuesday, and 8 p.m. Wednesday, going right up near Tennessee, North Carolina, West Virginia, and then it's in the northeast by this point. So it's way up there. So this is definitely something to watch. But as of the latest update, it is still a potential tropical cyclone. But with that recent drop in pressure, I think maybe they might make a special statement, or maybe the 2 p.m. update, they might make it Fred. I don't know. But based on what I saw from the reconnaissance there's clearly, I mean, you guys can see it too, there is clearly a drop in pressure at the end of that. So we'll see if the National Hurricane Center takes anything out of that. But other than that, that is it for today's video. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.